Okay, why are you here? How many are you here because you were assigned to come to one of these? Okay, be honest. Okay, so we got about half. Okay, and how about anybody who's here out of curiosity? Okay, we got some. All right, this is good. Okay, Daniel said that this will be data-driven, but I want to start something a little bit different right now. I don't know where my brain was this morning. I had this up on a PowerPoint slide, but I put it on a different drive and I left the drive in the office. So we don't have PowerPoint, but we'll do it this way. This is one of my favorite t-shirts. Can you read it? Can you read it right now? Can you read it out loud? Okay, I would have worn it today. It was a little chilly out for a t-shirt. So, what do you think of this as the story of race in America? Rosa sat so that Martin could walk, Martin walked so that Barack could run, Barack ran so that all our children can fly. What do you think? Okay, I'm going to sit down if nobody says anything. Okay. Danielle, go.
So I think that means that the issues that our country has faced over time has been being dealt with over a period of time by many different people. Each person has something to contribute, and each person on that t-shirt took the stand so the next person can see where they are.
Good. So lots of people contributed. We move forward on this. Other thoughts on the t-shirt?
It says progress to me, that there's been progress.
Okay, excellent. I mean, this is a progress story, right? Rosa sat, Martin, Barack, all our children can fly. It's a progress narrative. Daniel said everybody contributes, people contribute, we move forward. What else, if you were looking at the race story in America right now and you wanted to tell a story of progress, this sort of, we moved forward, what else would you point to? And we got three people here. We got Rosa Parks and Montgomery bus boycott. We got Martin Luther King, which is ultimately going to lead to the Civil Rights Act in 1964. And then we've got Barack Obama, the first African-American president, okay? What else would you point to as positive narrative, positive parts of this narrative? Okay, cue the PowerPoint right here. Yes?
I guess being in the biology department to increase in minorities in sciences and medical doctors in locations that we may not have found on like road departments.
Beautiful. Educational opportunities, right? Increasing educational opportunities. What else would you point to? Do we have any sports fans in the audience? Can you imagine an NBA with only white players? That's where it was. Okay? We have integrated sports. Okay? We kept it segregated. That changed. What else? Can you imagine a music industry without any African Americans? Until the 1950s, we had race records and we had white records. They were pretty much kept separate. If you were an African American artist, it would be really hard to make a lot of money by appealing to whites.
Marriage.
Bless you. It's always nice to have faculty in the audience. What do you think about that?
Just that at one time it would have been horrible to see a person of color with a white person that if they were in a romantic relationship or even a friendship.
Not only that, but until 1967, it's illegal in 26 states to marry a person of the other race. Illegal, as in jail. Okay? Anything else you want to throw in here? sort of presupposes this when we said Barack is elected. I mean, African Americans in the South basically cannot vote until the 1965 Civil Rights Act. Okay? Another piece to that, and let me make sure I get the numbers right here because my brain is slipping this morning. In terms of acceptance of black candidates, in 1958, a poll said that 62% of Americans would not vote for an African American man for president, even if the person were qualified and of their own party. So in other words, I think they're a good candidate, they're in my party, but because they're black, 62% of Americans in 1958 said, I will not vote for that person. Think of the transition here. Okay, now, said this week. We got lots of these here. Keep spreading that. Take a look for a minute at the economic piece. If you look at the top one, the money income of people by race and constant dollars, the constant there means that it's adjusted for inflation. So we're not looking at inflation in here. What do you see in that? You have white non-Hispanic males income in 1967 versus 2013, and then black males 67 and 13. What strikes you? Difference in amounts, okay? How does this fit into my narrative about progress, about things getting better? Got to tell everybody.
That every part has gotten better over time. There's still some inequality that exists.
Some? A little? A lot? What do you think? Black males' mean income in 2013 is $36,000 a year. They still haven't caught up to where white males were in 1967. Ooh, darn, that doesn't look very good, does it? But if you do the math on this, the black increase is 60%. The white improvement is 46%. So yeah, black males are still way behind, but their rate of increase is faster. 60% versus 46%. So if you want to be a pessimist, you look at it and you say, this doesn't look very good. Black males still haven't caught up. But if you want to be a little more optimistic, you can look at it and say, well, let's look at the rate of growth. Let's look at the rate of improvement. And then there's a little bit more sense of hope. Let's move to the, and I'm sorry, I'm going really fast today because we only have a very short period of time. I have a lot of stuff I'm going to get out. Let's go to the second one, the percent distribution by race earning above $75,000. The Census Bureau puts people into these lumps, and 75 and above is their most recent height section. What I'm trying to get at here is the idea that African Americans don't make any money, and that there's not an upper class of African Americans. What do you see in this pairing? 67 versus 2013 again.
It's the same as before. If you look at the difference between white and black males in 67, it's what, 8 times difference. 2013 it's 2. So again, if you look at the numbers, it doesn't look so good. If you look at growth, it looks positive.
The other piece that I wanted you to see here is that in 1967, you only have 1% of black males who are in the top category, which sort of fits the stereotype, right? That black males don't really, there's no upper class. By 2013, we have 10%, and if we could figure this all out, and I could bore you with all the detail, we now have a black middle and upper class. It's not huge, but there is one. So if you want to look at it in a positive sense, there's a gain there. It's not an illusion now to have, black population is about 13% of Americans, and now you have 10% of them in that upper group. Okay. If I convince you that we have a progress narrative here, that this t-shirt this is a good story, that I can wear this happily, right? I don't have to be embarrassed when I wear this shirt. I'm not lying about what happened, okay? You let me have that? You sure? Okay, I'm going to switch on you now because this t-shirt is not really a good story in some ways. And I'm going to try to show you that or get you to think about that at least. All right. And just if you think about this, my upper class thing about this, just think about it anecdotally. Not only if we went back 60 years, we not only would not have Barack Obama, we wouldn't have Oprah Winfrey as a media mogul, and we wouldn't have Mary Hinton as president of St. Ben's. Those things are all unthinkable 60 years ago. Absolutely unthinkable. So in that sense, we've had enormous progress. So I don't want to be too totally awful here. All right. More paper. I cut down lots of trees for today. Okay, everybody got one? All right, take a look at the percent of people below poverty level by race. What do you see? What do you make of that? Don't cheat and read all the other ones. Just look at the percent of people below poverty. What do you make of it?
Again, there's poverty is a lot higher than especially in 1959.
Okay, so in 1959, over half of black population is below what the Census Bureau calls the poverty line. So, yeah, you got a lot of poverty. Yes?
I think it's really interesting how in 2000, the percent of black people is 22.5, but then in 2013 it goes back up to 27.2, yet the white percentage went up 0.1.
Brilliant, brilliant. Why is that? What do you think? What ideas do you have for that? That's a lovely insight.
The most recent recession.
Recent recession. Why would the recent recession result in a small bump for whites, a very small bump for whites, and a huge bump for African Americans?
Types of jobs.
Jobs, more vulnerable. Certainly, we got lots of other things we could talk about there. If you wanted to look at this as a positive story, what would you say there? Oh, come on, it's simple. 56 to 27%, right? You've dropped the poverty. You've gone from over half to basically a quarter in poverty.
You could also say that for both categories, the rate has been halved. Bless you, for both white and for black.
Okay, so everybody's doing better. The ratio remains the same. You're still 3 times as likely to be in poverty if you're born African American, but only a quarter now instead of over half. Okay, so positive, negative, depends on your frame of reference. Keep in mind economic recessions are going to hit one group heavier than another group, but that's certainly there. Let's move on and look at the educational attainment piece, because that's one of the things we just said was underlying that bump in the recession, the negative part of the recession. If you go to the second set there, percent college graduate or more by race and sex, what we're looking at is here, what percent of the population over the age of 25 has a college degree or more, a BA or more? Okay, and if you can read the way I've typed this in, what it's trying to tell you there is that in 1980, 28.6% of white males, 23% of white females had that, 10% of black males, and 12.4% of black females. Okay, follow what's on the table? Okay. What do you make of it? Good, bad, and different? This is no fun if you won't play. Okay? Now,
That's why, still don't have all models that are getting positive education.
okay, that might be part of it, lacking role models. So what's behind that? Are you seeing a failure here in terms of improvement? Is that where you're going?
Yeah.
Okay, what numbers are showing you that?
I mean, there is an improvement, but the opportunities that they're still seeing, because there hasn't been the improvement to the same rates.
Okay,
I don't think that it's a coincidence that there's such a huge level or percentage of people below poverty level and people going to college.
okay. You see those connected somewhere? If you look just at the, take the black males to white males piece, there we've got almost 3 times as many in 1980, white males over black males, 28 to 10. We're down to about 2 times as much by 2013. So maybe that's a positive, but black males are still way behind. And you were very careful reading sort of year by year. What do you see in this one? I'm sorry, I'm picking on you. Somebody else help me out here.
Males are dropping, black males are dropping.
What happens to my progress narrative? 10.5 in 1980, 18.4 in 2000, and oh my goodness, 17.4 in 2013. Ooh, the Great Recession bites again.
Or it could just be that males are kind of sucking it up anyway, right? I mean, if you look at the increase that females are having in both races, the males aren't exactly
No.
blowing it out of the water.
No, I mean, if you want to, if this were, I mean, I teach a course on US since 1960, and if we were doing this in that class, we'd be focusing on this piece. If you look at the white females, I mean, look at that rock and ascent there, and the black male, or the white males are sort of coming along, but not at the same rate. So yeah. Okay, so the point I'd like to make with this is, again, there's some progress, but there's also inequality, fairly substantial inequality here. I mean, there's lots and lots of reasons behind that, but I want you to see that. Now, I think we assume, don't we, that when bad times happen, the more education you have, the less likely you're going to be unemployed, right? That's part of the reason why you're here. More money, but also, hanging on to a job. Let's go to the bottom table here, which is a little bit harder to read since I didn't cut out all the extraneous stuff. Look on the right-hand side, which is the unemployment rate. We don't want the unemployment numbers, we want the unemployment rate on the right-hand side. And you'll see the total unemployment rate and then unemployment for people with less than a high school diploma and then a high school graduate and then so on over to the right. Go down to the black and white ones, which are you can see on the far left-hand side as male, female, white, and black. Let's go into the total column for white and black. What do you see in terms of unemployment there? What strikes you?
I'm sorry, I was looking at 2000.
Well, take 2000, take 2005, 2010, whatever one you want.
Black unemployment rate is higher.
Higher? Is it the ratio pretty steady or is there improvement?
About 2 times higher.
It's pretty dead set at 2 times higher, and that's pretty much the historical narrative. If you're black, you're basically two times as likely to be unemployed. But remember, we got more black people getting educated, so let's see what happens with that. Let's take 2010, and let's go over and look at the black unemployment in 2010 for some college or associate's degree. In other words, high school plus a little bit. You see that's 12.4%, right? You follow me there? Go up to the next set and look at white unemployment and education there. Does more education mean less unemployment for African Americans? Oh my goodness, no. High school graduates, white high school graduates are only at 9.5. Blacks with some college are at 12.4. You got to be less than a high school diploma as a white to have a little bit more unemployment than an African American with some college. Oh man, that doesn't look good, does it? That doesn't look good at all. Now there are lots of possible explanations for that. It could be last hired, first fired. It could be racism. It could be choice of profession, what field you're in. There are a million different explanations for that possibilities. But the fact of it is that if you're African American in the Great Recession, you can have more education than some white guy that looks like me, and you can have worse occupational opportunities. Not a good picture. Questions, arguments? Yes, sir.
A lot of the news these days certainly has to do with white police violence and black males in particular, but a larger narrative about differential incarceration rates. And I was curious, I know that's not one of the, unless you've got another full handout coming, but how, if one wanted to integrate things like those sorts of factors, incarceration rates and the impact of the legal system, how might one?
One might do that in about 2 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks. Appreciate the lead-in. Before I leave that other stuff, one last thing I want to say about it is I tried to start you with a triumphal narrative, and I think there's a good evidence for some of that. But I think we need to sort of measure that a little bit and say, yeah, the things that happened in the 1950s and 60s did open the door for Obama and other talented African Americans, minorities of lots of different colors. But at the same time, I think we need to realize that while we've got this African American elite now, people who have benefited from the changes, we have that, but we also have millions of African Americans who are still stuck at the bottom, and that's what I think you're seeing in the stuff that I just gave you, that there's still a mass that hasn't changed. And to get a better sense of that and to address Greg's issue here, flip this piece of paper over and let's look at the back side. What I tried to do here, and let me explain this, and I want you to think about it for a minute. What I tried to do was to give you some data on 5 different places. Sartell, for those of you who don't know it, is a suburb of St. Cloud, relatively new community. Eden Prairie, fairly affluent white suburb of the Twin Cities. St. Cloud, a city that's becoming much more integrated with the influx, particularly of Somalis. Ferguson, I imagine you know from the news, Missouri community that was in the process of white flight and increasing African Americans, and that's where we had the riots. And then Sandtown, that probably doesn't resonate for you, but if you remember, just shortly after Ferguson, there were riots in Baltimore. Sandtown is a part of Baltimore where the riots were most intense. It's where they started. So that's your range of communities there. We have half an hour left. What I would like you to do is to look through this, and then if you could, try to get together with, we don't have real groups here, this isn't a class, darn it. But if you would move together and talk to 2 or 3 other people about what you see in this material, okay? Does that make sense? So move around, get next to somebody, get a chance to meet somebody. You could actually even introduce yourself to them. That would be really exciting. And then talk to them about what you see in the data, okay? Do that for a couple of minutes, and then I'll pull us back together and we'll work as a group on this. Go, work, fast, talk. Data-driven. That's what I said.
Just looking at black and white percentages, starts out pretty much different than standing out.
That's an issue. The question is that about the conditional aspect and how they move up in society. Or anyone you don't need that essentialistic mindset. It's like, it's one of the foundations of the pretty much exactly why. How do you change those and then change those numbers?
Although there is a great disparity. So much closer to St. Cloud.
Maybe actually, last time was the average.
There's a difference because that is why.
Population density for 5th category. Doesn't be expensive,
You don't care much about
which could be reflected on there.
Okay.
So like,
Well, and actually that population density is
The ones you remember?
Okay.
Okay. Smaller. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
All our people, like, they all take this.
Yeah, it's getting educated how it's being used there. So many The crime index is something that the city data.com puts together. And what they do is they pull different crimes. And so a murder gets more than larceny. And so they, but it's a composite index that they supply the same across the country. So it's inflates how many crimes. Yeah. St. Cloud is very low for murders, which I didn't include any of that. But, so, but yeah, the number of property torts in St. Cloud is much higher than it drives them to. So, okay, I hate to cut off the conversations, but let's pull back together here. Just because we only have 20 minutes left here. Let me give you a little bit more, and let's not do that, Ken. Let me change gears here. One of the groups talked about sort of the movement from left to right as I was going around and listening in on this. And what I'd like to ask you to think about for a second is if you went down just sort of the right-hand side of this and compared it to the left-hand side, are people on the right-hand side living in the same world as the people on the left-hand side? I'm not getting a lot of positive here, a lot of yes, that's the case, okay? Good question, but I think it's a great insight into this, that what this really shows to me is that we have two Americas, at least two Americas. And I titled my subtitle for this talk, I was Race in America, where you sit is what you see. And I wanted to get at the sense that we are two Americas. That if we're sitting in Sartell or Eden Prairie, we don't see the right-hand side of this page. And obviously vice versa. Except that
see the middle of the page.
Pardon me?
Sometimes if you're sitting in Sartell, you don't even see the middle of the page.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the differences here. And I mean, I think you've already got the big picture, but I wanted to sort of think about some of the underlying pieces here. Let's take a look at the unemployment piece there. The U.S. average in 2014 was 5.5%. So the unemployment for everything from St. Cloud to the left is better than the U.S. average. Ferguson's not great, but look at Sandtown. Holy moly. 21%? We're talking about almost a quarter of the people in this community are unemployed. Think about what that does in terms of attitudes. Think about what that does in terms of hope. Everybody that you see around you, people you hang out with, are probably unemployed. Does that inspire you to strive? Well, maybe not. Maybe it's hopeless. Who gives a damn? I'm going to go get a beer. Why not? It's 10 o'clock. It's time. There's nothing to do. Let's take a look at median household income. For Minnesota in 2013, which is where this data is from, Minnesota median household income was $60,000. So you get some sense of comparison there for St. Cloud, for Eden Prairie, and Sartell. The median in Minnesota is $60,000. For Maryland, it's $72,000. Okay, median household income in Maryland is $72,000, Sandtown is $22,000. Woo, they're off the grid. Holy cow. Take a look at the next set, the black and white in those communities. What do you see? What strikes you? Don't all talk at once.
The black populations in Ferguson and Sandtown are way higher than the white ones.
Just look at Sandtown versus, let's say, Sartell.
So they're opposites.
They're mirror images, right? We have a racially segregated society. We may come together in the workplace, but by and large, we live separately. By and large, we live separately. And particularly when you throw poverty into this, which we're doing with the Sandtown piece, and affluence on the other end of the scale. Population density. Sartell, if you haven't seen it, is a nice suburban kind of community. 2,700 people per square mile. Sandtown is 22,000. People have done, are there any psych majors in here? Psychologists have done studies with what happens when you put more and more rats into a cage. They don't fare really well. Okay? Think about 2,000 versus 22,000. Median rent, the only point I was trying to make there is that, now let's skip that, we don't have time for that. Let's go to education. What do you see there? I know some of you were talking about it. Oh, come on.
The high school rate.
Pardon me?
The high school rate.
The high school rate. High school rate, what, where?
Of the sandstone versus the left-hand column.
Sure. We're talking 95, 96% high school graduates, at least high school graduates. On the left-hand side, 62% of the people living in Sandtown did not finish high school. What does that mean in this world? What does your future look like that 62% didn't finish high school? We're not talking just a high school education. We're talking did not finish high school. How many jobs can you get if you did not finish high school? Good luck.
Same number as you could if you were 16 and in high school.
Good luck. And especially when the recession hits, you're employing somebody, who are you going to choose? Good luck. Let's move to the never married, or to the, excuse me, let's look at the now married. That's the one I really want to focus on. What do you see? Come on, it's the same story. Slide from left to right, okay? Okay, you won't play, then I talk. Okay, that's the punishment. Now, please understand, you do not have to be married to have a stable family. We have lots of evidence of that. Okay? But if you look at 60% marriage rate for Sartell and Eden Prairie, those are more likely to be stable families. I'm not saying they can't have to be, I'm just saying they're more likely. And look over at Sandtown. You've got 18% who are now married. Now you can have loving families, but the likelihood of more instability, the likelihood of single-parent families in that situation, the likelihood of not a great environment for raising kids is a little bit higher. Yeah.
Perhaps I'm drawing a conclusion here that I shouldn't, but we also see that the female rate is slightly higher in the communities with less likely to be married. And I wonder if what we're seeing here is a lack of marriageable aged men.
Yeah. I only have that for the Sandtown piece. That's the only one that we have that data for. And I would expect that that's the problem. When you go back to what we looked at before on black female education versus black male education, you have a big disparity there, and that's a problem. But the other piece I'd like to get to on that is the next one. You see the percentage of females in the community, I mean, that should be about 51% if we just did, by what we have. Look at Sandtown, it's higher. Ferguson's higher as well. And what at least some sociologists are talking about on that, there's a piece in the New York Times a while back called Missing Black Men. And what they're looking at is 25 to 54-year-olds who are not in jail. Okay, so 25 to 54 who are not in jail. And nationally, for every 100 black women in that 25 to 54 not in jail category, there are only 83 black men. The other 17 are either dead or in jail. For whites, there's basically no difference. But 17 missing out of every 100. Ferguson is probably the worst of this in the country, at least from what I've been able to find out. There it's 40 missing for every 100. So they're in jail or they're dead. And that certainly is going to tie into available males. Okay, crime data index. This is something that was asked, one group asked me about this, and this is something that's made up by the city.com people, and if you want to learn more about it, just go into their site and they'll explain how they make this up. It's a composite of all the crimes in there, and they weight the crimes more for murder, less for theft, that kind of thing. What I wanted to get at here is just the level of crime in these areas. The U.S. average for 2014 was 266 on their score. So you can get a sense that Sartell and Eden Prairie are, basically no crime in that sense. St. Cloud a little higher, and then look at Sandtown at 671. If you move to the juvenile arrest rate, and I just wish I could get this for the other cities, but the only place I could find it was for Sandtown because more work has been done on that recently. Baltimore did a really cool piece on it. What you're looking at there is juvenile arrest rate per thousand age 10 to 14. Now, what I read didn't say whether it was males or females. I'm assuming this is mostly males, but it didn't break it down. But think about it. You've got a quarter of the population, 10 to 17, who has been arrested. Now, they haven't been convicted, but they've been arrested, a quarter of them. Now, how do you think they feel about the police? 25% have been arrested. And I'm sure the police said, oh yeah, come on with me, we're going to jail now, right? How do you think they feel about it? Do they see the police as protectors? or as occupiers, as harassers, as the enemy. Think about if you're living in that environment. Move on to the incarceration rate. Again, I don't have for the cities, for other places, but Minnesota, it's 185 per 100,000 population. So 185 for Minnesota as a whole. Maryland, it's 387. The U.S., 297. And Sandtown, it's 3,000. Okay. Not exactly lovely. Questions on that? Okay. Because of the drugs, because of crime in these neighborhoods, whites are going to see these young black males as threats, right? It's not just police. Imagine most of you are familiar with the George Zimmerman following Trayvon Martin and shooting him, but he's not the only one. There's a film that's out called 3.5 Seconds, 10 Bullets, that's about a white guy at a gas station who felt threatened by some young black male sitting in a car and playing their music loud, and he took out a gun and sprayed the car, killed one of them. So this, the sense that of white males that these black males, young black males, are threatening is certainly there. And it's not just them. I don't know if you saw, none of you in this room except for old people like me watch the evening news, but there was a piece on the local news the other day about a guy who rescued a person in a car. He and his girlfriend rescued this person in a car crash in the Twin Cities. And the image that comes up for the guy on the TV, they're both African American. The young woman is very, I guess, I don't know, can you apply clean cut to a woman? I don't know what the right word is there. But the guy they show has dreadlocks, he's got a baseball cap on, he looks like a thug, and he's the guy who rescued this person. So, reversing the image. But I think our image starts with, oh my God, this guy's scary, kind of reaction. The point I want to make here is that we live in a world where a few blacks have sort of made it in the white world, but most blacks are trapped in a situation where the odds of escaping are low. And we have dehumanized them. We see them as dangerous. And to be quite honest, in some ways they need to be dangerous to survive in that world. You can't make it if you're not able to defend yourself. I want to shift gears and go to Greg's comment here. We're currently focused on this issue of police violence or use of excessive force. And one response as a historian I can make to that is that it's been happening forever. And the only thing that's changed now is that we have cell phone videos so that we have evidence of what's happened. And I think more importantly, we're more generally willing to give those accounts credibility and to demand action. So maybe that's progress in the sense that we want something to happen as a result of this. We say it's bad and we want change. At the same time, it seems to me that there's another interpretation that's maybe more important here. And that is that, for me, the focus on police violence misses the real issue. It misses the consequences of the racial segregation that I've tried to show you on this sheet. We have simply warehoused poor minorities in places like Sandtown. Stick them there, there's no way out, there's no hope. And what we're doing is asking the police to contain those people that we don't want to deal with. We're asking the police to use their authority and ability to arrest or use force to control the powder keg. A world of hopelessness, a world of rage, and a world that's really aimed at quick gratification, because the delayed gratification model that all your parents drummed into you, that you need to work hard now so that good things will happen to you later, that model just doesn't make sense if you're living in this world. Until we stop expecting the police to keep a lid on this and to create real opportunities, and we work to create real opportunities for these people. And we have people who are ready to grab onto them. I mean, it's a two-way street. They need to have real opportunities, and they need to be ready to grab them. Until that happens, we aren't going to solve the race issue for a huge segment of our black population. And I have a couple minutes left here, so I'm going to do one more piece here. Since I'm dealing with huge complexities in a very short amount of time, I'm going to plunge on to the white supremacist responses like the Dillon Roof shooting of the 9 people in the church in Charleston. One of the huge changes over the last 60 years is that we have opened the door for people who had been excluded. African Americans now have opportunities. Ethnic minorities of various other colors, shapes, sizes have opportunities. Women have opportunities they didn't have 60 years ago. Gay Americans have opportunities they didn't have. What that's meant for people who look like me is that we have more competition. If you go back 60 years as a white heterosexual male, I didn't really have any competition. I had to compete against other white males. But now the playing field has changed. I have to compete against talented African Americans, talented women, gays that would have been excluded, a whole range of people that now challenge me for the same opportunities. And that pisses people off. Dillon Roof, supposedly when he left Emanuel A. said, "That's what you get for raping our women and stealing our jobs." The second part is not unimportant. He feels like he has lost status, lost opportunity, that this world has changed, and he took it out on blacks. But my argument is that you're competing against a whole range of people that wouldn't have been there earlier. As blacks, women, and all the other groups gain the ability to use their talents to compete in the marketplace on at least a legally protected footing, if not an equal footing, that's going to raise resentment among white males. And I think you can see that in our politics today. You don't have to be Dillon Roof. There could be other people out there. White male heterosexuals have gone from being a protected class, the only ones who are really in the game, to a world where that protection, that advantage is disappearing, and with it their capacity to win in the way that they expect is disappearing as well, and that makes for angry people. Okay, I have 30 seconds left. I'm sorry, I wasn't looking at your signs. Questions, arguments? If you want to do this a little bit more slowly sometime, next fall I'll be teaching the U.S. since 1960. We'll spend a lot more time going through this, and it won't be 900 miles an hour.
Can I do it all the money in the world? What would be the first change you would make to start making progress? More progress?
I think that, I mean, I don't have easy solutions for any of this. Nicholas Lemann has written a book called The Promised Land that takes a family of African Americans out of the Delta where they basically were living in a pre-industrial world, and traces their move to Chicago from the 1940s through he goes up to about 1991. And one of his arguments there is that that basically the black community in Chicago has never had any role models, because people who made it in the African American community moved out immediately as soon as they could afford to. And what's left of it is sort of a concentration like Santana, people who hadn't made it, who couldn't make it, who got trapped into this circle of poverty and hopelessness. And his argument, and I don't know what would work here, but his argument is basically that we need housing integration, that we need people to live in contact with role models. And he does it just in terms of race, but I'm thinking that, you know, when I look at this data where we're really looking at two totally different worlds, that if we went back to some of the stuff that we had under Carter in the 70s, which was federal incentives for integrated housing. I mean, when the federal government built housing, low-income housing pieces, they didn't put all of those people in one block somewhere and isolate them. They spread them out and integrated them into the community. Those of you who are familiar with St. Joe, if you look on this end of town, there's a little semicircle that goes there on the edge of town that has a set of apartments in the middle of it. Those were federally built low-income housing, and those houses around it are all regular, you know, on-the-market houses. So you had that kind of integration. So you had people living in those apartments. Now, that might help in some ways, but think about the reaction if I say, okay, I'm going to go into a neighborhood in St. Cloud or Sartell or Eden Prairie, and I'm going to build a block of apartments for low-income tenants. Those people are, and they don't have to be racist. Part of their reaction is going to be, what's going to happen to my property values, right? And a house is the most expensive, most important thing that you're ever going to buy in your life. You think college is expensive. Wait, okay? And you don't want any threat to that. So if you're there, you're going to say, not in my block, not in my neighborhood, not within 3 miles of me. So I don't know how to solve that. It's nice being a historian, we can get to look back. Okay? Other questions I can't deal with. Thank you for coming. Stay warm.